Hello and welcome to another episode of the Talking of Minds podcast. During the past couple of years of this pandemic, and even before that, many people have reported feeling less energetic and happy in the daily life, or some have felt that they are missing a spark in life compared to before, or some of us have felt this unexplained exhaustion which is unrelated to physical health, or without being any physical reasons people have felt exhausted. And most of these have increased, or the reports have come in more during the pandemic period. But this is not exactly related to the pandemic itself. This is something more generally there in our lives. And in this episode, we will be talking about two concepts in mental health which are related to these kinds of feelings that we just talked about. And those are burnout and languishing. Burnout is a state of being emotionally, physically, and mentally exhausted. And most of the times, burnout is caused by stress in life. And the earlier work on burnout has concentrated on work alone, that burnout is caused by the stress from work. But more recently, the work on burnout has expanded to the daily lives of us. And even there are critics that that argue that burnout itself is not distinguishable from depression. There is nothing to be specifically studied as burnout itself. So that kind of a discussion also exists. Anyway, Christina Maslach, who has been a pioneer in the studies of burnout, has said that burnout has at least two or three components which makes it distinct. One is an emotional exhaustion that we talked about, feeling emotionally low, being unable to experience many positive emotions. And another thing is kind of depersonalization, where you are unable to to be close to people that you interact with as part of work, people outside your family or your close circle. For example, your clients, your patients, your students, customers, etc. You're not able to feel some kind of a closeness with them. You feel distant with them. And there is a lack of personal accomplishment. You are unable to make to appreciate the accomplishments that you have in your life, and you feel that many of the personal accomplishments are absent from your life. So these are all parts of burnout. And the outward symptoms of burnout can vary a lot. One of which one major symptom is a feeling of a reduced productivity and creativity. You feel that your productivity levels or your creativity has gone south. And some of us think of work and home life as a waste of energy and resources. You don't feel meaning in things that you do. You feel exhausted without a physical reason, without an explainable physical reason. And many of times burnout is also related to low immunity levels. You get a cold, or many of those normal illnesses very easily. You feel like withdrawing from your social life or your work life. And these can all build up gradually. They do not appear on a suddenly on a day. Just like if you have a depressive episode, most of the times the episodes of depression can happen spontaneously. But in the case of burnout, these things build up gradually inside you. And there is a tipping point beyond which you feel to you start to feel all these interfering with your daily activities. And there can be some personal reasons which make you more at risk for catching a burnout. So one is if you're kind of a perfectionist when compared to others. Perfectionism can lead to increased risk of burnout. Stress is probably the best or the number one reason for burnout, and this stress can happen related to work or related to your life incidents or your normal life. And the socio-economic system that we live in can also be a major contributor to people developing burnouts. It need not be related to individuals as such. So there is a very widely popular article and a later book by Anne Helen Peterson, where she speaks about, she's not a scientist, she's a journalist. She has written on a book on how capitalism has turned the millennials as a burnout generation. It's a pretty interesting read. May not be a scientific like an article or a scientific book, but it's a very interesting read. So that's about burnout. That's how burnout happens. That's what burnout is. Now to languishing. Now, languishing is, in popular literature, languishing has started being discussed very recently, specifically after the outbreak of the pandemic. So, there were some popular articles that appeared early on in 2020, which spoke about languishing. In the academia, languishing has been discussed right from 2002, 2003 onwards. But popular literature took notice of languishing and some related concepts only during the past 2 years. Now, languishing is a feeling of emptiness and a feeling of stagnation in life. It is a lack of enthusiasm. You don't feel the kind of enthusiasm that you had earlier. So, you notice a drop in your enthusiasm levels. In the West, terms like blah or may, these kind of terms are used to denote, the feeling of languishing. And this is more related to emotional health and less related to physical health than, burnout. And some of the discussions on burnout languishing have misrepresented it as a middle point between flourishing and depression, where depression is having the state of having a mental illness and flourishing is your complete mental health. Some of these articles have claimed that languishing is the middle point of this spectrum. In fact, according to the two continua model of mental health, which was proposed by Corey Case and his colleagues in the early 2000s, there is a similar article by Corey Case, which is titled "From Languishing to Flourishing." He conceives mental health as a separate entity and mental illness as a separate entity, which are related to each other, but they are independent of each other. So mental health, ranges from having mental illness to having no mental illness. And mental health ranges from a stage of flourishing to a stage of languishing. And flourishing is the status of having complete mental health, and languishing is a lack of mental health. And yes, this lack of mental health can happen a lot along with the state of having a mental illness, but these need not be related, directly related. And these things do not happen on a same spectrum. Rather, mental illness is a spectrum and mental health is another spectrum, which can be too closely related, but they are independent of each other. And languishing can also be related to depression, just like how burnout can be related to depression, but this connection need not also be very strong. And languishing is more difficult to notice and understand than burnout, because it's more related to your emotions, and emotions can keep changing. And some of the symptoms of languishing can be a very reduced level of motivation. You feel much less motivated than you happen to be before, and the feeling of emptiness in your daily life, and a difficulty to stay positive in spite of your circumstances being positive. You find it difficult to stay positive throughout. And it has also been said that the kind of toxic positivity that we nowadays see around us can also be contributing to languishing, even though we don't have much of research evidence into that as yet. So that's about languishing, and earlier we talked about burnout. Now we'll just look at how, what are the things that we can try to reduce or fight these issues of burnout, and to reduce languishing, or to increase, the chance of flourishing in our life. So one thing is definitely to manage our stress, learn of ways to manage stress, and if some things have to be removed from your life, or some major decisions have to be made in your life regarding the stress that you have in life, you have to probably do that. We have to take time off from work, whatever important work that we are doing. If it is kind of stressful, or if it is consuming a lot of your resources, we have to definitely try and take time off from our works, and take breaks from technology. Sometimes even that can help us a lot, concentrate more on the aspects of flourishing and all. And it is also important to maintain sleep hygiene, make sure that we get adequate amount of sleep at with a regular schedule. We can try and increase the physical exercise that we have in our life. It's very important for mental health and to fight burnout. And it's also important to have a balanced diet where the amount of preserved food and fats and sugar in our food intake is lessened, and we have more of probably omega-3 fatty acids and fibers and vegetables and all. And with regard to with regard to how we lead our lives, it is always important to cultivate activities or hobbies that provide meaning to our lives, things that have actual meaning, nourish creativity and novelty in whatever we do. Try to bring in novelty and creativity in life. And as I already said, sometimes we may also have to rethink some of the major life choices that we have taken, and which may have an impact on our well-being and our mental health. And it is also important to being connected to people, build better relationships, nurture your existing relationships, be mindful of, having an engaged relationship. And that does not mean necessarily, to become an extrovert, but it's more about maintaining the quality of relationships that you have. And we can also try some of the activities that can promote flourishing in life, such as practicing gratitude, practicing kindness, volunteering in various forms in which we can, such as trying and keeping aside some time and resources for helping others. These things are very helpful for maintaining our mental health and to promoting flourishing. And so, all these activities that can increase our mental health can also be helpful in fighting burnout and reducing this aspect of languishing that we have. So that's about burnout and languishing, what they are, how they happen, and what are the things that we can do to help reduce them in our life. So that's it for this episode. Stay tuned and thank you.